I can find plenty of negative things to say about LeBron James, without hesitation. I won't, but I could. They were trying to compel people to say he was the greatest. Michael Jordan didn't say that about himself. Kobe Bryant didn't say that about himself. Kareem Abdul-Jabbar didn't say that about himself. Bill Russell didn't say that about himself. Tim Duncan didn't say that about himself. Nobody said that. Nobody but him in his camp. Steph Curry hasn't said that about himself. Steph Curry has never called himself the greatest shooter of all time. Ray Allen never called himself the greatest shooter of all time. Reggie Miller never called himself the greatest shooter of all time. Allen Houston never called himself the greatest shooter of all time. Nobody called himself the greatest in anything but that man and his camp.
The notion that anyone is saying I'm the greatest, there's one guy in the history of sports I give total pass to saying I'm the greatest, and that's where GOAT comes from, Muhammad Ali. He's the only one who gets to say, I'm the greatest. Ali invented the conversation. He was, and to me still is, the greatest because he didn't just change his sport. He didn't just change sports. He changed the world.
Changed society.
He changed the nation's position on war. So Muhammad Ali is the GOAT, and he can say, I'm the greatest. Everybody else needs to defer.
Front to give your guy a chance.
Green looking to the front court.
Here's LeBron.
James,
He's
catch,
off.
fire, ball game! He did it!
That one right there made me the greatest player of all time.
He said it himself. Not once, not subtly. On national TV, in documentaries, in interviews, LeBron James has flat out declared that he's the greatest basketball player of all time. And honestly, that's where everything started to fall apart. Because in the entire history of sports, no true legend ever had to make that announcement. Not Jordan, not Kobe, not Kareem, not even Bill Russell, a guy who won 11 titles and basically reshaped the league. And then came the moment that shocked NBA fans everywhere. Stephen A. Smith, Michael Wilbon, and Charles Tabanzi teaming up to deliver a reality check so sharp it felt like a televised intervention. What started as a simple NBA conversation turned into a full dismantling of the idea that LeBron's GOAT status is beyond debate. So what exactly did they say that hit so hard? And why has this debate suddenly shifted into a completely different direction? To understand why LeBron's claim doesn't hold up, you have to look at how his empire was built. Because that's where the cracks start showing. The super team shortcut. When Michael Jordan won his 6 championships, he did it with the franchise that drafted him. He lost first, he battled through it, he took the punches, and then he dominated. LeBron? He made the calls, switched teams, and built alliances. Charles Tabanzi didn't sugarcoat it. If Jordan stacked teams the way LeBron did, he'd probably have 10 rings. And this isn't even about whether building super teams is wrong. It's about the path you choose. Jordan didn't take shortcuts. LeBron did. Miami, Cleveland, LA, every stop came with a new superstar or two. Bosh, Wade, Kyrie, AD. That's not conquering the mountain. That's rearranging the hiking crew. And the uncomfortable question that follows is simple. If LeBron hadn't crafted those rosters, how many rings would he honestly have? It's not hating on his greatness. It's just asking what actually powered it. Because the second you remove that structure, the resume looks a lot different. But Stephen A. didn't just stop at the roster part. He was bothered by something else entirely. The self-proclaimed crown. There's an unwritten law in sports. The great ones don't anoint themselves. The game does it for them. Conversation is pretty much over to most people. I beg to differ, and I'll give a different analogy to that because first of all, you're never going to say who's the greatest of all time. To me, I think that's more for PR and more for selling stories and getting hype. Stephen A. kicked the door open when he said it. Jordan never called himself the GOAT. Kobe never said it. Kareem never said it. But LeBron and his camp? They can't stop saying it. And honestly, it's not even just arrogance. It's branding. If you repeat something long enough, people eventually start buying into it. And that's exactly what's been happening. LeBron calling himself the GOAT isn't just confidence, it's narrative control. But Stephen A. drew a line in the sand. Greatness doesn't need marketing. It doesn't require a slogan. It doesn't come from the player's mouth. And that raises the awkward question. If you really are the GOAT, why keep reminding everyone? Why not let history do what history always does? Declaring yourself the greatest is like giving yourself a nickname. It never lands the way you think it does. And if you thought Stephen A. was bold, Wilbon took it up another level. Wilbon's standard legacy beyond the game. Michael Wilbon has talked privately with Kobe. He's spent time with Jordan. He's watched legendary players carry themselves when the cameras aren't rolling. And according to Wilbon, the truly great ones don't just avoid calling themselves the best. They actually redirect the praise. Jordan would point to Russell. Kobe honored MJ. The greats weren't just dominant. They were deliberate about showing respect to the giants before them. And Wilbon made another point that cuts deep. The only person who ever got a pass for calling himself the greatest was Muhammad Ali. And that's because Ali didn't just change boxing. He changed the world. He took real risks. He challenged entire systems. He sacrificed far more than fame or stats. Ali said he was the greatest and then proved it both inside and outside the ring. So naturally, the uncomfortable question becomes, what has LeBron done outside the game that puts him on that same level of impact? This isn't about charity or opening schools. Those things matter, but this is a different conversation. This is about cultural weight. And that's where the comparison gets tricky. But the debate takes another turn when you realize there's a double standard fans don't want to admit. The double standard dilemma. Let's say you accept LeBron's 4 titles as GOAT level. Let's say you defend the super teams. Let's say you genuinely believe his dominance was inevitable. Then why does that logic fall apart the moment another superstar tries the same thing? Why was KD dragged for joining the Warriors? Why was Kyrie clowned in Brooklyn? That's the question Charles dropped on the table. If stacking the deck is okay for LeBron, it should be okay for everybody. But somehow it's not. Because LeBron's fanbase plays by a completely different set of rules. When he builds a super team, it's genius strategy. When someone else does it, it's weak. When he wins, it's greatness. When others win, it's convenient timing. And that inconsistency doesn't just hurt the conversation, it destroys it. Because when logic goes out the window, fandom turns into noise. And that's where the debate really falls apart. Fan base versus facts. According to Charles Tabanzi, LeBron fans and logic rarely see eye to eye. They don't want comparisons. They don't care about context. They want the conclusion wrapped in gold. LeBron is the GOAT. No questions asked. Charles says he's heard every argument. Longevity, stats, versatility, all of it. And none of those arguments answer the key question. How were those numbers built? What era did they come in? Who carried the defensive load? How many finals were lost on that journey? Context matters, but it keeps getting ignored. And when anyone brings it up, the response is memes or volume. That's how the GOAT debate turned into a shouting match instead of an actual discussion. And here's the part people aren't ready for. Even if LeBron's numbers eventually pass Jordan in every column, he still might not be greater. Because the final test isn't measurable. There's something deeper. The weight of silence. There's a power in what you don't say. Michael Jordan never called himself the GOAT, but everyone else did. His silence said more than a press conference ever could. Kobe never begged for the crown either. Yet he's firmly in that same legendary space. Kareem played 2 decades, held the scoring title for years, never boasted about it, and still sits among the most respected. There's a difference between chasing the crown and being handed it by history. LeBron's decision to declare his own greatness didn't elevate him. It exposed him. It made his critics louder. It made his fans more defensive. And it shifted the conversation from his game to his claim. Legacy isn't built through self-promotion. It's molded by time. And until LeBron lets the game speak for him, that crown will always feel just a little borrowed. Because legacy isn't what you shout. It's what people say long after you stop playing. In the fiery back and forth between Stephen A. Smith, Michael Wilbon, and Charles Tabanzi, one thing became clear: greatness isn't just about stats or rings. It's about the path, the posture, and the validation that comes from everyone except the person wearing the jersey. LeBron James is one of the most gifted players to ever touch a basketball. His impact is undeniable. But the GOAT title isn't something you award yourself. It's something history eventually hands you. And as long as LeBron keeps trying to grab that crown with his words instead of letting his legacy seal it, He'll keep chasing ghosts and